Hey guys, how are you all? Welcome back to my channel. Today we will see what if Naruto destroys Sakura in Chunin exams. If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments. Naruto was running through the streets. He was weaving through the crowds of living citizens of Konoha with expert grace. His pursuers were less skilled at passing through busy streets and he was gaining on them. But his bright orange jumpsuit shone like a beacon amongst the moderately dressed people and they managed to keep him within their sights. Naruto didn't mind. He loved the thrill of the chase. That was why he splashed the two Chunin with neon orange paint. He threw a glance over his shoulder. They had left the busiest avenue and the two enraged shinobi were gaining on him again. He smirked. Everything was going according to his plan. He kept his pace and headed to a certain lane. The two were almost upon him. He turned to a side street and sped up. The pair followed him. Naruto pulled on a ninja wire nearly invisible to anyone who didn't know it was there. The two Chunin entered the alley exactly as the trap sprung. A tripwire made them stumble while the stack of empty crates piled up near a wall toppled over. Naruto laughed as his pursuers were buried underneath them. He listened to their angry shouts for a while before heading off. He wanted to be far away when they finally dug themselves out. He noticed Iruka-sensei lurking behind a fence. Naruto saw him through his concealing genjutsu. It covered his body perfectly, but it couldn't hide his soul. He pretended not to notice him until the teacher grabbed his collar. Then he pretended surprise. "Iruka-sensei, what are you doing here? Why aren't you in class, Naruto?" the academy instructor chastised him. "The graduation exam is in less than a week. Do you want to fail again?" "Of course not," he boasted. "I'm an amazing ninja. I'll graduate with no effort at all." "Naruto," Iruka spoke in a patient tone, "you can't even do a single bunshin. How do you want to graduate?" "Hey, just you watch," the boy grinned. "I'll graduate this year for sure, believe it." "I believe it if you put as much effort to your studies as you do to your pranks," the teacher chastised him. "But that stuff is boring," he pouted. Iruka just sighed exasperatedly and dragged his unruly charge to the classroom. Naruto wasn't boasting. He really could graduate if he wanted. Even though the simple bunshin was still giving him trouble, he could do the Mizu bunshin almost with no effort, as long as there was a water source nearby. The problem was he couldn't explain where he learned it. If most people in Konoha treated him like plague now, he didn't know what they would do if he confessed he could talk to dead people. That was his ability. He could see people's souls, both alive and dead. He figured he gained it when the Kyuubi no Kitsune was sealed into him. Whether thanks to the demon itself or the touch of the death god, he wasn't sure. It wasn't like he could ask. He wasn't supposed to know about the sealing, but there were too many souls lurking around speaking about it. It wasn't easy to find a spirit that would talk to him. The ghosts wandering around were the souls that couldn't find rest, thanks to something from their lives waiting on their conscience, chaining them to the earth. They tended to pace aimlessly, muttering about whatever was bothering them. Only a few retained their minds and were able to hold a conversation with him. Some of them called him names, seeing him as the demon, but he didn't hold it against them. He could see the sheer terror they went through reflected in their aura. If attacking him verbally helped them find their rest, they were welcome to do so. He just hated when they touched him. It was so cold and it sent icy shivers through his body, like the sun stopped shining for a moment. That was also the reason he wore orange and pranked people so much. He had to assure himself he was still alive and not one of the colorless cold apparitions idling around. When he met a ghost of shinobi willing to talk to him, he considered it a huge success. Some of them talked about the missions they undertook and sometimes died on, but some even showed him some of their tricks. Naruto tried his best to remember and recreate them. It made the bulk of his ninja knowledge. He had a lot of holes in his basic education, but he knew some of the advanced stuff. Naruto was sitting at his desk in the academy classroom, utterly bored as Iruka-sensei droned about the history of Konoha. "Naruto." Iruka's voice hit him just as he was about to drift off. "Can you tell me what was the special ability of the Shodai Hokage?" Naruto had met the Shodai's ghost 2 years ago near the Hokage Tower. The founder of Konoha was really interesting to spend time with and Naruto could boast knowing more about him than almost anyone else in the Leaf Village. But he couldn't tell. Wasn't it something with trees?" He scratched his head nervously. "That's not enough, Naruto," Iruka said exasperatedly. "Oh, come on. Why do we even need to know such details?" That's important knowledge, Yubaka, Sakura shouted, hitting him on the head. What was that for, Sakura-chan? He rubbed his head and made puppy eyes on her. Naruto liked Sakura. For ordinary people it was impossible to understand why. She obviously disliked him and kept hitting him on the head for the smallest offense. Random observers couldn't understand how he can be so thick not to notice she hated him and was hopelessly in love with Uchiha Sasuke. The truth was Naruto realized it very well. She just made him feel alive with her punches. Every time he felt like he was drifting into the realm of ghosts, he would annoy her and her fist would ground him back into the world of living. He decided he would graduate this year just for her. He hoped he would get her on his team. For being a baka. Stop it, you two, Iruka yelled. We're in the middle of the class. The lesson resumed. The day of the graduation finally came. Naruto was anxious. Not that he might fail, but that he might pass. If anybody found out about that, they would be befuddled. Naruto always shouted he wanted to be the Hokage, and usually meant it, so why wouldn't he want to graduate? It would be easier to understand if they knew how many dead shinobi he spoke with. It quickly stripped him of all delusions of glory in the shinobi life. He had almost as good understanding of the perils and misery of ninja career as seasoned war veterans. Although he considered himself fairly good ninja for his age, and he was right, he knew there were many better who wouldn't care he was just a kid and would kill him with pleasure. He wanted to get good before going out there. That was why he spectacularly botched his options at earlier graduation, but he couldn't afford to delay graduation any further. His yearmates would be graduating today and he needed to be among them if he didn't want to look like an even bigger loser than he already did. The morning of the tests came and Naruto did his best. The written test gave him trouble. Reading wasn't his strongest skill. Thrown weapons test was better, but he got the worst set of kunai and shuriken the instructors could procure. It was difficult to hit anything with that, but he managed a passing grade. Taijutsu practice wasn't much better. He knew the theory, but he didn't have anyone to spar with outside the lessons. Then came the ninjutsu test. And of course it had to be bunshin. Naruto watched as the instructors called one pupil after another to a separate room. After a while they returned with a brand new Hite 8. Uchiha Sasuke, Iruka called. The brooding boy got up and sauntered to the door accompanied by multiple oohs and ahs of his fangirls. Naruto pitied him. The ghosts of his murdered family followed him everywhere. He used to try to help him, but the last Uchiha was crystal clear on the fact that he would rather die than accept help from the class dobi. Sasuke passed the test and returned with a massive applause from his fan club. Now it was Naruto's turn. He covertly uncorked the water bottle hidden in his utility pouch before walking to the examination room. Well, Naruto, Iruka said, all you need to do is create 2 perfect bunshin. Just you watch, Naruto grinned. Bunshin no jutsu. A large cloud of smoke appeared. Naruto used it to hide his movements and silently created 2 water clones from the supply he brought along. It was a tricky business because the amount of water was limited, but he had practiced it and proved that with enough control it is doable. He just had to spread the water along the surface of the clones and make them hollow. Unfortunately, chakra control was one area he struggled with. The cloud cleared and Naruto anxiously glanced at his handiwork. To his left stood a perfect copy of himself, grinning. To his right, the clone ran out of water. Its head was missing. No, thought Naruto, frantically willing the clone to form fully. I'm sorry, Naruto, Iruka said, you failed to make 2 perfect bunshin. I cannot let you pass. No, Naruto shouted. His clones dissolved into puddles. What is it? Iruka asked, startled. His assistant Mizuki looked interested. Mizu bunshin, Naruto admitted. There was no reason to lie. The 2 Chunin should be able to recognize the jutsu of their own. How do you know it? Iruka demanded. I saw somebody doing it, he answered. It wasn't entirely a lie. And you learned it just like that? Iruka was dubious. Yes, Naruto nodded. I think we should let him pass, Mizuki proposed. He made 1 perfect clone. He was supposed to make 2, Iruka objected. I ran out of water, Naruto explained. If I had more, I could make an army of Mizu bunshin. There won't be always a supply of water at hand, Naruto, Iruka said. I'm sorry but I can't let you pass, that is unless you can make 2 perfect bunshin, and this time the regular kind, no fancy water jutsu. Okay, Naruto said subdued. He still had chance. He concentrated and tried to create the basic Bunshin. Control, he thought. Use just the precise amount of chakra and you'll make it. The cloud of chakra dispersed, revealing two sickly pale and deformed apparitions keeled over on the ground. Naruto grimaced. He had made better attempts before. I'm sorry, Naruto, but I cannot let you pass, Iruka said grimly. Isn't it harsh? Mizuki asked. Naruto didn't understand why was the silver-haired instructor trying to help him. He had never cared for him before. Probably doesn't want to deal with me anymore, he decided. No, and this is final. If he can't make perfect Bunshin anytime, that he'd just be a hindrance to his teammates and can get them all killed. Naruto was sitting on the swing in the academy yard. He watched the happy graduates and their proud parents celebrating today's success. Fools, he thought. They had no idea what they were getting themselves into. He reckoned most of them would be dead soon, especially Sasuke's fan club. Lot of dead fresh genin gathered around to haunt their teachers for failing to prepare them properly. The academy graduation test was wrong and narrow-minded in his opinion, when it failed him and let airheads like them pass. They should do something else, like give them a simulated mission and grade how effectively they could complete it. He could then show off a lot of skills the current test didn't even touch upon. Hello, Naruto. Hello, Mizuki-sensei. The boy slowly turned to the newcomer. Iruka doesn't mean to be harsh, the teacher said, you must understand. Naruto understood. He could see Iruka's love to his students and his pain over the loss of his parents. Talking to ghosts made him surprisingly well informed. He just couldn't speak of any of this. He wants you to be prepared the best before you go out to the fields. It's dangerous out there. No kidding, Naruto thought but said nothing. But I see you are a talented boy who really deserved to graduate this year. This is why I'll tell you what Iruka hid from you. There is another way to graduate. Naruto perked up. Not that he wanted to become genin so badly, but because something stunk about this situation. Mizuki never liked him, so why was he suddenly being so nice? Naruto could see the dark tones in his soul. The silver-haired instructor wasn't a good person, he was almost certain. But he said nothing and listened. It was already night when Naruto was stealthily making his way towards the Hokage Tower. It was supposed to be the best guarded building in whole Konoha, but when somebody had talked with the spirit of the architect, it was possible to find a safe way in. It wasn't easy by any means, but Naruto was a crafty young ninja and knew a few tricks to fool intruder detecting seals, thanks to another ghost who shared his knowledge with him. The window of Hokage's office wasn't closed. Naruto sneaked through the gap. He dropped to the floor and released the transformation, making him appear like an animal. This was another of his secrets. He could really change his shape, not just appearance, but when he transformed into something of different size, it was very draining on his chakra. He took a look around. Where was what he came looking for? A side door opened and the Sandame appeared there. What are you doing here, Naruto? Naruto was sitting on the grass near the shack. Mizuki told him to wait. He was studying the Forbidden Scroll. The first jutsu was a godsend. The Kage Bunshin was exactly what he needed. He carefully studied the description and then started practicing. A few hours later he leaned against the wall with a satisfied smile. He had made it. He was tired, but he was happy. Nothing stood in the way of his graduation now. He waited for Mizuki to appear. Iruka came instead. What are you doing, Naruto? The Chunin instructor asked desperately. Oh no, thought the boy, this wasn't supposed to happen. What now? Iruka-sensei, he flashed him his patented wide grin. When in doubt, play dumb. That strategy usually paid off. Look, I already learned the jutsu. Can I graduate now? Naruto, who told you that? Iruka demanded. Mizuki-sensei did. He told me if I learn one jutsu from this scroll, I'll graduate. That was when Mizuki finally showed up. Naruto saw him in time, but Iruka first noticed him only when the kunai flew out of the tree. Naruto jumped out of the way. Iruka had no idea his student possessed such good reflexes and tried to protect him. He ended up hit instead, but his flak vest took most of the damage. Iruka-sensei, Naruto shouted in alarm. He didn't want anything to happen to the teacher because of him. Mizuki jumped out of the tree. Give me the scroll, Naruto. Mizuki-sensei? The boy put on his best confused expression. What's going on? Naruto, don't. Iruka shouted. Whatever happens, don't give him the scroll. It contains dangerous forbidden jutsu. He mustn't get his hands on it. Naruto, there's no point in you having it, Mizuki smiled, so be a good boy and give it to me. No, I haven't finished studying it yet. I can become an even more awesome ninja with this and then everybody would love me. Naruto, Mizuki smiled darkly, they aren't going to love you no matter what you do. Do you want to know why? I'll tell you. Don't, Iruka shouted, but Mizuki ignored him. 12 years ago, the Kyuubi no Kitsune attacked this village. They told you that the fourth Hokage killed it, but that is not true. No? Naruto looked befuddled. That day a special rule was created. A rule everybody but you knew. That wasn't true. Naruto knew it as well. One man executed for violating it told him. The rule was never meant to be told to you. What's the rule? Tell me already, Naruto demanded. No, Iruka yelled. Mizuki chuckled evilly. The rule is, that nobody was allowed to tell you that the Kyuubi wasn't in fact destroyed. You are the Kyuubi, and you are an idiot. What? Whatever response the traitorous Chunin was expecting, that wasn't it. He didn't get the chance to ponder about it long. Two Anbu appeared out of nowhere, restraining him. Mizuki was startled, but regained his composure quickly. He gathered his strength and managed to free one of his arms. A kunai appeared in his hand and he hurled it at Naruto with all his might before one of the Anbu hit him on the head, knocking him out. Naruto saw the weapon sailing towards him, but he had momentarily let his guard down and wasn't quick enough to get out of its way. Stupid, he thought, like he never heard all the tales of what got various shinobi killed. Iruka saw it as well, but couldn't get to his student in time. The kunai hit Naruto below the ribs. Iruka watched in horror as the boy toppled backwards. No, he shouted. Then Naruto exploded in a puff of smoke. What? Iruka blinked in surprise. That was a shadow clone. Iruka-sensei, Naruto's voice explained from behind. Iruka turned to see the blonde coming out of the shack. Iruka was confused. This was a trap, he asked. Yes, Naruto confirmed. Good job, Uzumaki, said one of the Anbu. His partner had disappeared, carrying the unconscious Mizuki on his back. Now let's return the scroll. Of course. Naruto picked up the scroll and headed to the Hokage tower. Iruka tagged along. So let me get this straight, Naruto, Iruka said over a bowl of ramen. Mizuki told you he'd let you graduate if you take the forbidden scroll, but you didn't believe him. Naruto nodded between slurps. He was finishing his second bowl. So you sneaked into the Hokage tower to tell the Sandaime about it. Naruto again nodded. He then decided that you'd lay a trap for Mizuki and allowed you to take out the scroll and learn one jutsu. Yes. Naruto finished his bowl and Ayame hadn't brought him another yet. You then waited for Mizuki on the spot he told you to wait and studied the scroll, while two Anbu watched you didn't try anything the Hokage didn't allow. Naruto nodded, once again slurping the noodles happily. You mastered an A-ranked kinjutsu within a couple of hours and then replaced yourself with a clone while the real you hid. Another nod. That is when I came. Oh, and the Hokage promised you he'd make you genin if you can complete the mission successfully. Did I miss anything? Nothing important. You did well, Naruto, Iruka complimented him. I only don't understand why you never do that well in class. Are you sure you want to know the answer? Naruto's tone was somber. It went completely against the image Iruka had of him. He suddenly felt like he was looking at a stranger. Can I have another bowl? The boy asked in his usual boisterous tone and the odd moment was gone. Iruka shook his head. He must have been imagining things. He didn't ask the question again. Naruto went to the Hokage tower to get his shinobi registration. Sarutobi was sitting at the desk, a Chunin at his side helping with the paperwork. He showed him his fun registration form and then listened to the lecture about proper shinobi behavior. It was almost worse than listening to the ghost of shinobi droning on how the Hokage sent him on a suicidal mission, apparently sometime during the Second Great Shinobi War. When he was told he had to retake his photo, he showed him the serious one. The elderly man looked at him with an unreadable expression and asked why he couldn't just show it outright. Before he could answer, he noticed another ghost charging at the Hokage, this one of a young child. He briefly wondered what could somebody so young have against the village leader. Then he noticed Sarutobi's eyes straying towards the newcomer. Can he see him too, he wondered. Then he realized the child was still alive. Curse it, I'm losing it again, he realized. Time to visit Sakura-chan. The attacking boy tripped on his scarf and fell on his face. He picked himself up and glared around furiously. His eyes settled at Naruto. You set a trap here, he accused. You tripped over your feet, the blonde corrected. The smaller child looked like he wanted to argue, but that moment a man ran through the door. Are you alright, he asked. And there isn't a trap anywhere. I know there is, the brat claimed. He set it up. He pointed at Naruto. The orange-clad fresh genin didn't see what his problem was, but he definitely didn't like his attitude. Don't blame your clumsiness on others, he said. I'm not clumsy. The short boy jumped at Naruto in an attempt of a threatening attack. It would have been much more impressive if he didn't trip over his scarf again. He would have landed quite painfully if the blonde didn't catch him. Let go of him, the man with glasses and bandana shouted. Geez, can't they show a bit of gratitude? I just saved the brat from hurting himself. What's his problem anyway? Oh, wait, I already know. Yeah, let go of me. The brat in question punched Naruto's arm. 'Cause I'm the Hokage's grandson. He looked at the older boy challengingly, like he expected him to do something. Spoiled brat, decided Naruto. Does he think he has it bad? He needs a wake up. So what? He shouted back daringly. So come on, go ahead and punch me, if you aren't like all the others. The young Jinchuriki had no idea what was that about, but this twerp was seriously annoying him. He decided to ignore the fact that the Hokage was watching and punched. He barely put any force behind it, but the younger boy was so surprised that he fell down and stared at Naruto stupidly. How dare you, yelled the bespectacled man. How dare you punch the honorable grandson? And you, honorable grandson, don't lose your time with the likes of him. You should focus on training instead. If you learn shinobi arts from me, an elite tutor. Naruto listened in disbelief as the man droned on. This is what the poor kid has to put up with every day. Most ghosts aren't that bad. I owe him an apology. Bah, I'm not apologizing to anyone. He noticed the kid was slowly inching towards the door. He decided it was a good idea. He already handed in his papers and he didn't have to be there anymore. He quietly made his way out. The man with bandana didn't even notice it, still engulfed in his monologue. So was the dead guy behind the Hokage. Naruto noticed he had picked up a stalker. Not another one, he groaned inwardly. But unlike Hinata, he didn't need his special sense to detect this one. The mop of dark brown hair was popping everywhere, around corners, behind trees, above a sideways held camouflage cloth. The blonde decided that enough was enough. He turned around and snatched the cloth away, revealing the completely unashamed figure of Hokage's grandson. Impressive, you could see through my cover, the brown-haired boy said. Not impressive at all, considering your utter incompetence, thought Naruto, but before he could say it, the brat continued. It seems the rumors about you are true. That depends. I'll make you my boss. What? Just what I need. Being a boss to a tiny whiny brat. You heard me. You'll be my boss and in return you'll have to teach me a jutsu. Really a spoiled one, the blonde scowled. Please, boss? The child unleashed the dreaded puppy dog eyes. Naruto never had to face them before and thus had no reason to develop a tolerance. Besides, it sounds good to be called boss for once, he thought. Now what to teach him? He smiled. He had the perfect idea. It might even give that stuffy teacher of his an aneurysm. Naruto and Konohamaru, as his self-appointed apprentice introduced himself, were taking a break from their training. The blonde had to admit that his new pupil wasn't a bad character, that is when he wasn't currently being a brat, which didn't happen often. He found himself enjoying his company, even if his student was completely incompetent at what he was trying to teach him. He asked him a question that was bothering him ever since the dark-haired boy made his appearance. Why do you keep attacking your grandpa like that? Konohamaru then launched into an explanation of his name and the so-called curse it meant for him. Naruto listened in silence. You got it backwards, he said when the younger boy finished. You have to first become a great and respected ninja and only then you can be considered for the new Hokage. And that isn't going to happen if you insist on being a brat. What do you know about me? Konohamaru shouted in rage. Seems we're back to brat again, he sighed. If that's how you want to play. If you want to be Hokage, then beat me first. Naruto shouted with enthusiasm. You bet I will. From now on we're rivals. Konohamaru responded in kind. I liked him better as my underling, Naruto thought. Can I turn it back? Probably not. You're on, he shouted. Then he noticed somebody approaching rapidly. Oh no, he thought when he recognized him. Then Ebisu jumped onto the clearing. Come home, young master, the self-proclaimed elite tutor commanded. If you want to become Hokage, blah 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 blah. No, his charge shouted. I'll defeat the old geezer, so don't stand in my way. I'll defeat you too. Sexy no jutsu. Konohamaru outdid himself. Ebisu's jaw hit the ground upon seeing the gorgeous brunette, and even one of the ghosts present looked like he would have gotten a nosebleed, if he still had blood. Naruto felt pride at his new friend's accomplishment. Well done, Konohamaru, he praised his pupil. Now behold a true master's work. Harem no jutsu. Ebisu couldn't handle it anymore and fainted. I see I still have much to learn before I can beat you, rival, Konohamaru said, now back in his original form, wide-eyed. But I will beat you. I'll do it in no time. You'll see. You'll have to work long and hard before you can get as good as me, Naruto smirked. And I'll be working hard in the meantime too. If you want to be the Hokage, you have to go a long way and you can't take any shortcuts. Stop lecturing me like you know everything, the younger boy pouted. I'm not letting you to be my boss anymore. It stung. Who would want to have such a lousy underling anyway? You're not getting anywhere with that kind of attitude. I'm a real ninja now. I can't waste my time with kids who don't know what's good for them. Konohamaru looked dejected. Naruto pitied him in that moment. I might be your rival if you truly work at surpassing me. Deal, the younger boy shouted. Naruto smiled. It looked like the beginning of an interesting relationship. The day of team assignments finally came. Naruto had woken early in the morning and went through his regular training schedule. Then he encountered a ghost who seemed willing to talk, but he didn't manage to pry any useful information out of him. The blonde sighed, but wasn't too disappointed. Those things happened regularly to him. A quick glance at the sky revealed the sun high on its daily voyage through the heavenly ocean. He startled. He spent there more time than he had thought. Now he might miss the grand occasion. He took one look at his clothes. At one point he tried sparring with his shadow clone and ended rolling through the dirt. The sweat he had worked up in the unusually hot weather didn't help either. He wrinkled his nose. He would have to change before going to the academy. He ran home at the highest speed and took a quick shower, then put on his best orange jacket. It looked almost the same as all his other ones, but this one had less tears in it. His stomach rumbled. He had no time to prepare breakfast, but he could grab something ready. Unfortunately, his fridge was understocked, the only available option being a carton of milk. Naruto sniffed it suspiciously. It had been there for quite some time. Was it still good? The boy wasn't sure, but his growling stomach overrode his brain. He downed it in a few gulps. He wiped his mouth in his sleeve and ran towards the academy. It turned out he wasn't as late as he had originally feared. When he surveyed the room, he noticed several people he knew had passed were still missing. He had to answer the uncomfortable question of what he was doing there when he failed the graduation and then looked for a place to sit. There seemed to be 2 places empty beside Sasuke, but he could see his parents sitting there. There was another next to Hinata, but he feared the stalker girl might faint at his close proximity. He had once considered getting close to her, but he refrained in the end. He didn't want to drag her into his world. Then he noticed 2 latecomers nearing the classroom and his decision was made. He sat right into the misty form of Uchiha Makoto, ignoring the chill running through his body. He got the faint impression that the dead matron scowled, but he didn't care. He watched with amusement as Sakura and Ino fought furiously over who got into the room first. He couldn't decide whether their rivalry was funny or annoying. The girls finally burst through the unfortunate door and Sakura walked up to Naruto. "Move out," she commanded. "I want to sit next to Sasuke." I can't see why, thought Naruto. Uchiha Fugaku was already occupying the seat, sneering at the world. "Can't you sit next to me?" he pouted. She scowled. Ino scowled. Makoto, standing beside her, mirrored the action. "Please," he added. Sakura, instead of answering, just hit him on his head and jumped over him right into the body of Uchiha Fugaku. The dead clan head sneered and then turned to Naruto. "It's your fault," he said. The blonde ignored him. He never understood why the Uchiha clan acted like their demise was his fault. He knew he shouldn't show any sign of noticing the spirit at all, but he couldn't keep the scowl from his face. The clan patriarch took offense. He struck the boy. Even though he couldn't physically harm him, the cold floating into his veins was very, very uncomfortable. Naruto couldn't bear it anymore and jumped from his seat. Unfortunately, at that moment a boy sitting in the lower row, Kutra was his name, moved and pushed Naruto in such a way he fell right on Sasuke. Their faces touched. Oh no, thought the blonde. He pushed himself off, but the damage was already done. Sakura towered above him, her eyes blazing with fury. Ino's figure was only slightly less menacing. Naruto knew he was in for it. Well, I said I needed it just yesterday. Naruto pushed himself into his seat. That was more than I bargained for, he thought. His whole body was hurting and even his enhanced healing would take quite some time to undo all the damage the enraged Sasuke fan club had inflicted. Every occupant of the classroom, dead Uchiha included, was sneering at his misfortune. Finally Iruka-sensei entered the classroom and everybody's attention turned to him. Quiet, he ordered, and the chatter died down immediately. Then he launched a speech about their upcoming duty as shinobi of Konohagakure and the various perils accompanying their career choice. If he really wanted to make a lasting impression, he shouldn't be so boring, Naruto thought. He noticed several people dozing off, not only the obligatory slacker Shikamaru. Finally the speech ended and the main event came, namely the team assignments. Naruto watched with mild interest as various names were called and the genin in question reacted to their placement with either joy or disappointment. He waited for his name to come up. Finally, Team 7. Uzumaki Naruto, he perked up. Haruno Sakura, he jumped with joy. Just what he had wished for. And Uchiha Sasuke. No, was he really stuck with the entire Uchiha clan? He groaned in disappointment even as Sakura cheered on the victory of true love. Why does an outstanding shinobi like me have to be in the same team as the prick over there? Sakura looked at him like he just murdered her puppy. Good, maybe that ridiculous display would make them reconsider the team assignments. Iruka scowled at him. Or maybe not. Naruto, the teacher started in a patient tone reserved for the slowest of pupils. Does he really think I'm that stupid? He should have learned that lesson with Mizuki. The teams are made to be balanced. Sasuke's scores were the best out of the 27 graduates, while you were the dead last. I want to see what good would his scores do to him once we're attacked by an enemy squad, Naruto thought grimly. Whose bright idea was it to let bureaucrats who probably weren't in the field since their genin days teach here anyway? Once I'm Hokage I'm going to change it. Just don't get into my way, dead last, Sasuke muttered. That was another reason he didn't want to be on the same team with the last Uchiha. His ego was so big that it could pass as a team on its own. He said so aloud. Sakura punched him. Iruka sighed exasperatedly. He proceeded to read the assignment of Team 8, clearly considering the matter closed. In the afternoon, we'll introduce your Chunin senseis, said Iruka once everyone was placed on a team. Until then take a break. The students started to disperse, discussing the pros and cons of their new squads. Sasuke rose silently and walked out of the door, Sakura following him like a lost puppy. Sasuke pretended she didn't exist. Naruto scowled. This wasn't good. They were supposed to be a team and they weren't able to get on with each other. That would make them fail their sensei's test for sure. Naruto had heard about the test from one poor little graduate who failed it and was so desperate he committed suicide. He then wandered around the training grounds, muttering about teamwork, bells and one-eyed perverts. Naruto never quite gathered what exactly was the test like, but he knew it was a team pass or fail. He had to explain it to his teammates and get them to at least tolerate each other for the time being, else they were sure to fail. For a moment he considered failing on purpose to get out of Sasuke's team, but then decided against it. Considering what trouble he had with graduation this year, they might be able to block him entirely the next. And besides, he really wanted to be with Sakura. It meant he had to talk to two people who didn't want to speak to him. He sighed and went to search for his wayward teammates. He found Sakura easily. She was sitting alone on a park bench, looking dejected. Sasuke had obviously given her the slip. He walked up to her. She gave him an angry glare and proceeded to ignore him. This wouldn't do. Hello, Sakura-chan, he greeted her. She didn't deign him with an answer. Can I sit with you, now we are teammates? No. Her tone didn't leave any doubt she really meant it. That wasn't good. I need to talk to you, he announced. Get lost, she scowled. It's important, he said seriously, but she was unimpressed. I'm not interested. It's about the team. He couldn't give up. It didn't sit well with her. I said get lost. Her cute face scrunched in annoyance. That's a bad attitude to have, Naruto couldn't help but say. It wasn't the smartest thing to do. I said shut up, baka. Sakura cracked her knuckles. Do you want to stay in the team with Sasuke? He fired his most powerful weapon. She hit him. Leave me alone, the pink-haired girl shrieked. I'd won Sasuke's heart a long time ago if you weren't interfering all the time. I don't want to have anything to do with you. That's a problem, he pointed out. We're teammates now, remember? Get lost. Her eyes were blazing with fury. Naruto realized that reasoning would get him nowhere and left. He'd try to talk to Sasuke, but he doubted he'd get a better response. He found the dark-haired boy on a balcony, eating his lunch and brooding. His family stood with him and greeted Naruto with icy glares. Sasuke simply ignored him. I need to talk to you. No reaction. Naruto mused whether it was better or worse than Sakura. Our Chunin sensei will give us a test to see whether he'd take us or send us back to the academy. I don't know what the test is, but it's a test of teamwork. Whole team either passes or fails. Sasuke didn't show whether he heard him at all, but Naruto thought he noticed a glimmer of interest in his eyes, but with the Uchiha it was hard to tell. He hoped it wasn't just his wishful thinking. That's all. I'll be going. Sasuke continued eating his lunch. Naruto could only pray that he remembered his words. He didn't dare to hope that Sasuke would take them to his heart. After all, an Uchiha would never take advice from the class dobi. Naruto returned to where Sakura was still sitting. If she didn't want to talk to him, she sure would talk to Sasuke. The dark-haired boy was still preoccupied with his lunch and was unlikely to show up anytime soon. He was unlikely to show up here at all, period. He took a deep breath and performed the henge. He had a funny feeling in his stomach, but he wrote it off as anxiousness. He walked up to Sakura. The girl started glowing when he neared her. Naruto briefly wished she looked at him that way. Hello, Sakura, he said, trying to sound as uncaring as he could. Sasuke-kun, the girl blushed. Her green eyes were full of hope. Naruto suppressed the urge to groan. Was that how their team was going to be? There were dead fangirlish excuses for Kunoichi running around everywhere. Sakura, I have to talk to you about the team. Yes, Sasuke-kun, she beamed. We're together. Isn't it wonderful? It is. Sakura shone like a light. Naruto got a bad feeling in his stomach. Come to think of it, the feeling in his stomach had been going progressively worse for some time. He had to admit it wasn't only anxiousness. But he had to finish this talk, then he could go. And if you want to stay on the same team with me. What do you mean? The pink-haired girl interrupted. Of course I want to stay with you. I love you, Sasuke-kun. That's well, he nodded approvingly. So if you want to stay on the same team with me, you'll have to do as I say. Crap, I didn't mean it to sound that way. Of course I'll do anything you say, Sasuke-kun. Sakura's expression revealed she thought of being kissed. That girl does have a one-track mind, thought Naruto. And I have to finish it soon, I'm getting worse. Well, later today, we'll go on a date? The pink-haired girl looked so hopeful he felt like a villain for crushing her expectations. No, Sakura looked utterly dejected, but he could find no sympathy for her in himself. His stomach was seriously aching now and the pink airhead was stalling him with her fangirlism. What I meant to say was that after the Chunin sensei comes to pick us up. Crap, thought Naruto as his stomach rumbled. Screw the talking, he had to go pronto. I'll tell you later, he said and ran towards the facilities. He ended up staying too long there, all the time cursing the spoiled milk he had drunk for breakfast. Why couldn't he go hungry? If it makes them fail the test. When he finally dared to leave the toilet, the break was almost over. Sasuke had finished his lunch in the meantime. Sakura had spotted him and trailed after him, making an utter fool of herself. He could only follow them into the classroom and wait for the Chunin to come. They had been waiting for hours now. All the other teams had left with their senseis, only theirs didn't show up yet. Even Iruka's sensei had gone home quite some time ago, so it was only the three of them and Sasuke's dead family now. They had made no secret about their displeasure with Naruto being on the same team as Sasuke and they had quickly driven the orange-clad boy into the furthest corner of the room formed the last Uchiha. The two living occupants of the classroom were ignoring him, Sasuke brooding, Sakura staring at Sasuke. Naruto was getting jittery. He had to sit here, he couldn't get out because their tardy sensei could show up anytime, he couldn't talk to his teammates, because they didn't want to talk to him, he couldn't train inside the classroom, because he wasn't sure how much he can trust those two. Oh, and he really shouldn't break all the furniture as well. There was only one thing left to do and he wasn't sure whether pranking their new teacher was a good idea. He was nearly convinced it wasn't, but the boredom and the glares were slowly driving him out of his mind. It didn't take long for him to reach the stage when he couldn't restrain himself any longer. He got up from his seat and looked around for things he could use. There wasn't much in the nearly empty classroom, only some chalk, one blackboard eraser and a pointer. There weren't even any papers in the teacher's desk. Haruka had taken them when he left. "What are you doing, Naruto?" Sakura asked in an accusing tone. The blonde ignored her. He took the biggest chunk of chalk and inscribed something onto it with a senbon. Then he placed it over the door. "That's what he gets for being late," the orange-clad boy answered. "I'm not involved in this," the pink-haired girl declared, but Naruto noticed the glint of amusement in her eyes. "Like a Chunin would fall for such a stupid booby trap," Sasuke scoffed. His family was scowling at the demon vessel, but that was nothing new. Then the door slowly opened and the chalk fell right onto the head of a masked man. The chalk promptly exploded and Naruto had to laugh at the look at the masked ninja's face. His expression was priceless even though only one eye was visible from his whole face. The only downside was that the chalk was almost invisible in his silver hair. "He got you good, Kakashi," snickered the ghost of a boy behind the silver-haired Chunin. Naruto immediately took a liking to him. Then he recognized the fan symbol on his collar. Another Uchiha? Oh no. But those already present barely spared him a glance and it wasn't friendly. Just what was it with them? "I'm sorry, sensei, I tried to stop him." Sakura stammered. Liar, Naruto thought. She was barely restraining herself from laughing at the sight of the ninja frantically trying to get the powder from his hair. Sasuke looked even more brooding than ever. His family on the other hand was clearly furious. What is he doing here? How dare he? The thief. And the traitor. Death to the both of them. Now that sounds like there is some interesting history there, the blonde mused. I wonder what it could be. How to say this? Kakashi scratched his chin through his mask. A white smear appeared on the black cloth. My first impression of you is, I don't like you guys. What? The Uchiha boy behind Kakashi shouted. They're wonderful. Just like we were. Or is that why you don't like them? If only Sensei was here. Sakura seemed downtrodden. Sasuke his usual broody self. The dead Uchiha clan was scowling fiercely than ever before. Meet me at the roof in 5 minutes, he ordered and disappeared in a swirl of leaves. I wonder how long we'll have to wait for him this time, Naruto mused. It's not like the trip up there takes any more than a minute. As he walked up, another thought occurred in the blonde's mind. He's one-eyed and late. Could he be the same guy the dead kid was talking about? I hope not, because if he is, then we're in a world of trouble. They had been sitting on the rooftop for only a quarter an hour when the silver-haired man finally decided to show up. His mask was pristine black. Good work with the chalk, the Uchiha kid following him told Naruto. He had to go home for a new mask. Naruto smiled at that. The dark-haired boy with goggles was startled. You can see me? Naruto nodded slightly. Wonderful, he shouted. The rest of Uchiha clan was watching disapprovingly. The boy stuck out his tongue on them, to the amusement of Naruto. Anything funny? Kakashi asked. The blonde shook his head. Sakura scowled at him. Stop it, baka. Sorry, Sakura-chan. He flashed her his biggest grin. She scowled deeper. Some people were impossible to please. Well, now everyone is paying attention. The Chunin started. Let's begin with introducing ourselves. What do you want to know? The only living girl here asked. How about your likes, dislikes, your dreams about the future and things like that? The one-eyed man replied unenthusiastically. Why don't you introduce yourself first? Naruto suggested. Yes, Sakura agreed. You look kind of suspicious. Yes, the dead Uchiha boy shouted. So this is Hitaki Kakashi. He is the biggest prick you'll ever meet. His hobbies are reading porn, failing students and let's not forget reading porn. His dream for the future is to get an even bigger stick up his rear. Naruto had to bit his tongue to prevent laughing aloud. Oh, me? The masked man looked like it was the biggest bother ever. My name is Hitaki Kakashi. Silliest name ever, his companion commented. I have no desire to tell you my likes or dislikes. You're still under 18, the goggled boy added. Dreams for the future? Still not a shred of imagination, the boy sighed. And I have a lot of hobbies. Like reading one book over and over again. So all he told us is his name, Sakura scowled. I don't understand how she was the smartest girl in class, if she cannot deduce anything from this, Naruto mused. Though compared to the rest of Sasuke's fan club. Now it's your turn, Kakashi said. Let's start on the right. Yosh. My name is Uzumaki Naruto. What I like is cup ramen. What I like even more is when Iruka-sensei pays for my ramen. What I dislike is waiting 3 minutes for my ramen to cook. And my dream is to surpass the Hokage. You told us nothing about yourself, so don't expect us to tell you anything in return, he thought. Hobbies, pranks, I guess. I see, muttered Kakashi in a way that indicated he didn't see at all. Naruto was liking him less and less, and he never liked him to begin with. Next, the Chunin commanded. My name is Uchiha Sasuke. There are a lot of things I dislike and I don't really like anything. Moron, the goggled Uchiha boy commented. And, I can't really call it a dream, but I have an ambition. The resurrection of my clan and to kill a certain man. As expected from my son, Fugaku said. Kill the traitor, Sasuke. The rest of his clan nodded vigorously, only the one behind Kakashi looked troubled. Sakura looked at her idol with hearts in her eyes. Kakashi's expression was unreadable. Naruto didn't like it one bit. This was the first time he heard Sasuke say that, and he was taken aback at the sense of dark purpose radiating from the boy. I definitely have to do something about it, he decided. Oh, and lastly the girl, the Chunin pointed at Sakura. It sounds like he didn't even bother to learn our names beforehand, Naruto realized. Did he decide to fail us the moment he was assigned to us? Well, looking at us I can't really fault him, but shouldn't he at least pretend to try? My name is Haruno Sakura, the pink-haired girl started blushing. The thing I like, her eyes flickered to Sasuke. Well, the person I like is, her blush deepened, and, my dream for the future, her face now competed with her dress. Oh yay. Just like Rin, grinned Kakashi's dead follower. What I dislike is Naruto. She didn't have to shout it, the blonde thought. I take it back, the boy with goggles said. She's nothing like Rin. My hobby is, once more she looked at Sasuke and giggled. Kakashi rolled his single eye. Okay, so far for the introductions. Tomorrow we'll start our duty as shinobi. Yeah, duties. Naruto shouted, mostly to relieve the tense atmosphere. The attempt completely failed. First we are doing something only with the 4 of us, Kakashi announced. Not that again. His companion grabbed his head. Can't you skip it for once? Kakashi didn't answer, being unable to hear him. Naruto was now genuinely interested and also a bit apprehensive. Was that the dreaded Genin test? What is it? He shouted to relieve some of his anxiety. Survival training, the silver-haired Chunin answered. No, anything but that, the boy with goggles wailed. Survival training, Naruto asked. Why is our first duty training, Sakura added. We had enough training at the academy. And it prevented you from chasing Sasuke more, didn't it? Naruto couldn't help but think. This isn't normal training, Kakashi explained. This time I'm your opponent. Can't you skip it for once? The dead Uchiha made a show of tearing out his hair. Then, what is it? Naruto really wanted to know. Kakashi chuckled. The blonde could easily detect the nasty undertones. What's so funny, sensei? Sakura asked. Well, it's just that. When I tell you this you guys are totally going to freak out. Which is exactly what you want, you sadist, Naruto thought. Freak out, he asked aloud. He freaked out when sensei told us, his dead teammate revealed with a snicker. Of the 27 graduates only 9 will be chosen to become genin, Kakashi announced. Liar, the boy with goggles shouted. The rest will be sent back to the academy. This training is a very difficult exam with a failure rate over 66%. In Kakashi's rendition it's 100, his companion commented. So he really is the one who drove that poor kid to suicide, Naruto mused, and he looks totally unrepentant. Sakura looked startled, Sasuke brooded. His dead family was furious. Don't you dare fail my son, Fugaku snarled. Makoto nodded in agreement, the expression in her eyes fiery. Kakashi was oblivious to them. I told you you'd freak out, he started laughing. I really don't like him, Naruto decided. Shouldn't I fail on purpose just to get out of this freaky team? Then Kakashi's dead teammate kicked the giggling Chunin. Cut it off, he shouted. If only sensei could see you now, he would be ashamed. Naruto decided that this team had its redeeming qualities. What? But we worked so hard. What's the point of graduating? Naruto wanted to shout something else, but he restrained himself from calling his new sensei names. Oh that, Kakashi said lazily. This was just to select those who had the chance to become genin. Everybody present, alive or dead, scowled at him. The silver-haired ninja was completely unperturbed. What? Anyway, tomorrow you have to show your real skill on the training ground, Kakashi announced. That's not true, the ghost of the Uchiha boy disagreed. Bring all the shinobi tools you have. Oh, and skip breakfast, you might throw up. You'll come hours late again, his dead teammate pointed out. The details are on this paper. And don't be late tomorrow, the silver-haired man commanded. Like it matters, his companion snickered. You're going to be 3 hours late as usual. Honestly, Kakashi, even I wasn't that bad. Might throw up, Sakura worried. Is it really that tough? Tougher, the boy with goggles replied. Kakashi then handed each one of them a paper. The pink-haired girl studied hers like her life depended on it. Sasuke scanned his and then crumpled it. My son will not fail, Fugaku said. Naruto briefly wondered whether the last living Uchiha in Konoha could hear it. Don't even bother reading it, the dead Uchiha outcast advised Naruto. I'll tell you how to pass the test tomorrow. The orange-clad genin shot him a questioning look. The ghost nodded. Kakashi disappeared in a swirl of leaves. Sasuke got up and walked away, his dead family and Sakura trailing behind him. Naruto remained on the roof alone only with his new friend. So what should we do tomorrow? He asked. And why do you want to help us? And by the way, what's your name? Oh, I forgot. I'm Uchiha Obito from the great and famous Uchiha clan. Or it once used to be a great and famous clan, he added downtrodden. And I want to help you because it would help Kakashi. He really needs to get a life, even if it means getting stuck with your jerks of teammates. And besides, it would be wonderful to finally have someone to talk to. That it would, Naruto agreed. But don't you mind Sasuke's entourage? I noticed they weren't looking at you too friendly. Bah, Obito shrugged, that doesn't bother me. They did it as long as we were alive. There's no reason for them to stop now that I'm dead. But enough about me for now. I'll tell you about the test quickly before I have to go haunt Kakashi again. That man really cannot be left alone, lest he does something stupid. Naruto laughed heartily. This ghost was enough to endure the rest of his team for. Kakashi sat alone in his flat. He mused about the team he was assigned today. The Hokage really wanted him to pass them, he could tell that much. But truth be told, he wasn't impressed. It began when the Hokage took him to see Naruto's flat. He noticed the bottle of spoiled milk on the table. How can anyone actually drink this? 10 points down for lack of situational awareness. And when he saw him in person, dressed in an orange eyesore he probably thought passed off his jumpsuit. Prattling on about ramen and more ramen, he couldn't see how the boy ever graduated. Then there was the matter of the last Uchiha. He was Obito's last surviving relative and Kakashi was tempted to pass him just for that, but when he saw him, he had to change his opinion. Sure, he seemed to be the most competent shinobi out of the three of them, the only competent at all, but his fixation on killing his brother was unhealthy, bordering on an obsessive disorder. Scratch it, it probably was an obsessive disorder. The child should be in a mental ward, not the field. And the third member of the team? He shrugged when he recalled the only kunoichi among his students to be. The girl only thought about her love interest, completely forgetting about everything else. Even Rin wasn't as bad with her crush on him. Well, the crush maybe was, but at least she was a competent medic. Sakura didn't seem to have any redeeming quality. Girls like her usually didn't survive their first battle. And let's not forget about the essence of every squad, teamwork. Better not even go there. For one team member to openly admit to hate her teammate, that was unprecedented. They fully deserved to fail for this alone. Even he never did that to Obito, only berated him for his failings. Well, Obito would disagree, but Kakashi wouldn't hear him, so it didn't matter. Really, he would be doing them a service by failing them tomorrow. Such stupid punks wouldn't be able to survive in the field anyway. He understood what the Hokage was trying to do. Give him a squad that would resemble his old one. Well, it wasn't working. If anything, it made the situation even worse. They were a twisted caricature of what his team used to be and even looking at them hurt. Especially Naruto. His sensei gave his life and soul for Konoha, for creating a warrior to protect it, and his sacrifice was wasted on the orange idiot. It was disgusting. It was all he could do to restrain himself from kicking the annoying goofball there and then. The only thing that helped him accomplish the feat was the thought of what he would do to him tomorrow. Yep, 1,000 years of pain were definitely on tomorrow's schedule. Then Obito entered the room, unnoticed by its other occupant. "Hey Kakashi," he shouted in his face. "You're going to pass them tomorrow, understand?" No reaction. Obito sighed. "Are you brooding again? You know this isn't good for your health. You really should get a life." Kakashi didn't hear him. The dead Uchiha scowled. "You're ignoring me just like you always did. Typical. Waste your time remembering things long gone. You know what? I didn't die to save you just so you can waste your time away. Do you hear?" He didn't. The boy with goggles sighed in exasperation. "Brood all you want, Kakashi, but if you fail them tomorrow, I'm going to haunt you for the rest of your life." He conveniently forgot the fact that he was already doing it, to absolutely no avail. Kakashi didn't react. He never did. That never stopped Obito for repeating the same speech every day. He was persistent and it wasn't like he had anything better to occupy his time with. Maybe once he could get through to his teammate. And if not him, then maybe someone else will. Maybe. The morning dawned bright and clear, when the three genin gathered on Training Ground 7. All of them were carrying large backpacks on their backs and all of them were yawning, Sasuke and Sakura from not being used to getting up so early in the morning, Naruto from being awake most of the night. After Obito had told him how their team did the test and how Kakashi administered the test to every one of his assigned teams, he spent the afternoon scouting the training grounds, thinking up possible strategies and setting up traps. It always paid off to be prepared, and even if they should fail today, he was going to give their tardy sensei a run for his money. He was only a bit disappointed that it didn't occur to his teammates to at least take a look at the training grounds beforehand. It wasn't like they slept through Iruka's lessons about always being prepared. Was Sakura too busy bothering Sasuke and Sasuke too busy avoiding her that they didn't have the time? Or was it because Sasuke was the awesome Uchiha and he didn't need to prepare in order to pass? It didn't really matter anymore. Naruto glanced around and saw Kakashi's soul through the foliage, sitting near the memorial stone Obito had told him about. The ghost was there as well. When he saw Naruto, he glided over to him, much to the displeasure of Sasuke's dead entourage. "Hello," he greeted. "Are you ready for today?" Naruto nodded. "Good," Obito smiled. "It's about time somebody showed up the jerk, isn't it?" Naruto nodded again. "Say something, dude." Naruto just shot a glance at his teammates. Sakura shot a strange glance at him. Naruto stood up and started walking away. He wanted to talk to Obito in peace. "Where are you going?" shrieked Sakura. She was sleepy and hungry and all in a bad mood, and Naruto gave her a perfect outlet for it. "I'm just taking a walk, Sakura-chan," he explained. "We are supposed to wait here, Baka. I'm not going far. Our sensei can show up any time," the pink-haired girl scowled. "Ah, Sakura. He came 3 hours late yesterday and he couldn't even get to the roof on time. What makes you think he'll show up promptly today?" The kunoichi had no answer. Sasuke pretended he didn't hear them. "Go and don't come back, you demon, and the traitor as well," Fugaku snarled. "Go," Makoto added. Naruto obeyed. Nobody tried to stop him. "So what do you want?" he asked once they were out of sight, and hopefully earshot as well. "Me want something?" Obito had a too innocent expression. "Then why did you come? Can't I just come visit?" "You can, but you make me look like a lunatic, talking to thin air and all." He gestured towards his teammates. "They already think I'm an idiot." "Then let them," the Uchiha suggested. "That's easy for you to say," the blonde scoffed. "You aren't stuck on a team with them." "Am I not? I can't leave Kakashi, remember." "Sucks for you. Tell me about it." Obito rolled his eyes. "He's coming here," Naruto whispered. "We have to quit. You're no fun," Obito complained, but Naruto ignored him. He returned to his teammates. They eyed him strangely, but he had lots of experience ignoring it. After a while he noticed even Kakashi going away. He yawned and lay down to catch on lost sleep. "What are you doing, Baka?" Sakura scolded him. "Sleeping," the blonde replied. "That is until you woke me up. I can't understand how you can sleep at a time like that," the pinkhead huffed. "Easily," he explained. "I lay down and close my eyes." "Baka," she scowled. "Our sensei can show up anytime." "I don't think so." He could see Kakashi once again staring at the memorial stone out of the corner of his eye. He snuggled down comfortably and closed his eyes once more. Sakura huffed, but didn't bother him anymore. He promptly fell asleep. Kakashi was staring at the memorial stone. For one time, he wasn't reminiscing about the past, but about the 3 genin currently waiting for him. They would call him tardy and lazy, but he had actually a good reason for not coming on time today. It was a part of his test. You would weep, if you could see them, sensei, he thought. They're pathetic, nothing like we were. Sure, Rin had a crush on me the size of Hokage Monument, but even she had nothing on Sakura. And Sasuke. He's so cold and obsessed. I know I was bad, but surely not like that. And Naruto. He's a joke. What is he even thinking, talking to thin air? Is he insane or what? How can somebody like him have anything to do with you? It hurts just to look at him. It feels like you died in vain. And their teamwork, or rather lack of. It got even worse since yesterday. I gave them time to learn to work together, to make a strategy, and what did they do? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Sasuke's brooding and probably plotting ways to kill Itachi. Sakura is fawning over him and Naruto is sleeping. And they call themselves shinobi? I don't know whether to laugh or cry. Never mind. I'm going to fail them and then I won't have to hear about them anymore. The council can go screw themselves for all I care. In fact, it would be hilarious watch them pop a vein or two. You would love it too, wouldn't you? I know how much you dislike dealing with them. Hey, Kakashi, Obito called. Don't you think you left them waiting long enough? The Chunin didn't answer. He obviously didn't think it was long enough. Obito sighed. This was going to be a long and boring wait. Naruto. Hey, Naruto. Wake up. The shouting and a feeling of cold were what woke the blonde up. Obito was kneeling above him, trying to shake him and failing, since he had no physical body. I'm awake, he mumbled. Sakura looked at him strangely. Good, Obito said. Kakashi's coming your way. There was no need to say it. Naruto could already see for himself. Then the silver-haired Chunin appeared in front of them. Hey guys, good morning, he shouted. You're late, Sakura and Naruto shrieked in unison. Kakashi didn't even acknowledge their outburst. No excuse, Obito raised an eyebrow. You're slipping, Kakashi. The man in question ignored even that and put an alarm clock on a nearby log. Naruto smiled inwardly. So far everything went like Obito had told him. Okay, it's set for noon, the masked man announced. Then he showed them 2 bells tied with strings. Here are 2 bells, he said like they couldn't see them for themselves. Your task is to take these from me before the time's up. Those who don't have bell by noon get no lunch. I'll not only tie you to one of those stumps, but I'll eat my lunch right in front of you. It's official, Naruto thought, he is a sadist. Sasuke's and Sakura's stomachs rumbled. Naruto had done as Obito told him and ate his breakfast. You only have to get 1 bell, Kakashi continued. There are only 2, so one of you would be definitely tied to the stump. And the person who doesn't get a bell fails, so at least one of you will be sent to the academy. Most likely all 3, Kakashi thought. Liar, 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 Obito chanted. His dead clansman scowled. My son won't fail, Fugaku said. Makoto nodded in approval. If you want, you can use shuriken and kunai, the Chunin offered. You won't succeed unless you come at me intending to kill. But, you'll be in danger, Sakura stammered. And she seems so clever at the academy, Naruto thought ruefully. What does she think a bunch of fresh genin can do to a seasoned Chunin? Yeah, you're so slow you can't even dodge a chalk, he couldn't help but remind him. We'll definitely kill you. The traps I've set beforehand should help a lot. In the real world, those with no talent often bark the loudest, Kakashi said in a tone reserved for the slowest of children. So far so good, Naruto thought. He's already underestimating me. You're in for a surprise, Obito shouted, but his warning fell on deaf ears. Well, ignore Mr. Dead Last and start when I say. Naruto scowled while inwardly he was laughing with glee. So far Kakashi had been reacting just as he expected. Time for the next part for the plan. He put on a furious expression. He didn't even have to pretend. The one-eyed man was seriously pissing him off. He withdrew a kunai and jumped straight at Kakashi. And exactly as he expected, the Chunin blocked his attack and twisted his arm around, so that the kunai was now pointing at his own neck. Naruto wriggled, trying to get free, but the silver-haired man held him steady. Calm down. I haven't said start yet. Sakura was watching it in disbelief. Geez, you would think she never heard about Chunin before, Naruto thought. Sasuke on the other hand finally looked genuinely interested in something. Why so harsh, man? Obito shouted. Just kill the demon already, Fugaku advised. Well, you seem finally prepared to come at me with the intent to kill, Kakashi said with amusement. So you've finally acknowledged me? Hee hee, it seems like I'm finally beginning to like you guys. He sounded utterly insincere. Come on, Kakashi, Obito prodded. Aren't they adorable? Kakashi finally released his captive. Naruto scowled, massaging his wrist. Inwardly he was doing a victorious jig. Mission accomplished, the tag was safely in the place. Now he only had to wait for the right moment to activate it. Begin, Kakashi shouted. The three genin scattered. Kakashi stood alone in the middle of the field. He couldn't see any of his students, but that didn't mean he didn't know where they were. He was a Chunin for a reason while they were still genin. The most important thing for a shinobi is to be able to hide yourself, he said. Nice, they're hidden well, he thought. Then an orange eyesore appeared right in front of him. He closed his eye in exasperation. Sensei, is that even possible? He's a complete idiot. Come here and fight me, Naruto shouted at the top of his lungs. It made Kakashi wince. I said fight me, the blonde repeated. You're a little bit off, Kakashi replied. No, you are, Obito corrected. The only thing that's a bit off is your haircut, the orange-clad genin called running towards Kakashi. The Chunin reached into his pocket. The genin slowed his approach, watching him warily. Shinobi fighting lesson number 1, Taijutsu, Kakashi said in the talking to an idiot voice. Tell me you aren't going to do that, Obito whined. Please no, please no. Kakashi took out a small orange book. Oh no. Obito clutched his head. Do you have to read it all the time? Get a life finally, why don't you, man? What's wrong? Kakashi taunted. Hurry up and attack me. But, hey, what's with the book? He's a pervert, Obito explained. Pervert, 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 pervert. I just want to know what happens next, the silver-haired man answered. Oh man, you've read it only about 100 times. But don't worry, it won't make a difference against you, guys, the open pervert added. Naruto just about had it. Kakashi was going down, painfully. I'll totally kick your ass. He attacked Kakashi. The Chunin blocked without effort, his attention seemingly concentrated on the book. This went on for a minute until Kakashi got bored with it and with great speed appeared behind Naruto. A shinobi isn't supposed to get caught from behind, Baka, he said, folding his hands into a seal, still holding the book between his palms. Not that, Obito wailed. Anything but that. Naruto, run away, you're going to get killed, Sakura shrieked. Maybe there is hope for us, Naruto thought. Too late, Kakashi announced gleefully. He slammed his fingers into Naruto's butt. Hidden leaf ancient taijutsu style, 1000 years of pain. This actually has a name, Naruto wondered before his clone dispersed and he was hit with very painful memories. Ouch, how comes this isn't a kinjutsu? There must be some law prohibiting doing that to children. Kakashi was surprised. I was fighting a clone all the time? I didn't even notice. But where is the real one? He got you, Obito danced around. Naruto in his hiding spot smiled. He had gathered a lot of information about Kakashi's fighting style and he discovered that Sakura might be willing to cooperate after all. Things were looking up. Then Sasuke decided to attack. It seemed like the perfect opportunity. Kakashi was distracted, puzzling over what Naruto had just done. He launched multiple shuriken at him. Kakashi batted them away without even looking. A set of kunai came after that and this time the Chunin was hit. Or so Sasuke thought, because the next moment he turned into a log. Kawarimi? Crap, he now knows where I am. He quickly jumped from his hiding position, but it did him little good. Kakashi appeared right in front of him, the infernal book in his hands. So, the village's most powerful clan, the Uchiha clan. This could be interesting, he drawled lazily. Sasuke's only response were thrown shuriken. Such obvious attacks are useless, Kakashi taunted. That was when he noticed one of the projectiles cutting a wire. A trap? A number of kunai sailed towards him. He evaded without trouble. The Sasuke jumped at him and engaged him in close combat. Naruto was running through the woods. He could see Sakura's soul in front of him clearly. It didn't take him long to reach the girl. Sakura-chan, he whispered. What do you want, Baka? Do you want to pass? Of course. Then we have to cooperate. Cooperate with you? She scowled. I won't let Sasuke fail. You won't. Whole squad either passes or fails. What? But Kakashi-sensei said, and you believed him. He is testing our will to stick together by pitting us against each other. And I'm supposed to believe that, Baka? You're just trying to separate me from Sasuke-kun, so you'll have me all for yourself. That's not true, Sakura-chan. Liar. She hit him on the head. This way you're going to fail and be separated from Sasuke for sure. Hey, are you hungry? I brought some food. He showed her a box of onigiri. Sakura's stomach rumbled loudly. You brought food? But Kakashi-sensei said, and once again you believed him. He lied once, why can't you believe he lied again? But he's our sensei. And he's testing us. Eat up. Your brain is going to work better with some fuel. She punched him again. I take it as thank you. He rubbed his sore head. Then he was assaulted by memories from a dispelled clone. Kakashi just got Sasuke, he announced. What? Sakura startled. How do you know? Naruto ran through the memories in his head. The Uchiha had put up quite a fight, but to no avail. Kakashi was too good for him. And in the end, what had possessed him to stand so long on one spot? Wasn't he supposed to be a genius? He should know better than that. Now I know you are a liar, the pink-haired girl scoffed. Get lost, I don't want to do anything with you. She stood up and ran off. Naruto sighed. This wasn't going well. He created a cage bunshin to follow Sakura and went to find Sasuke, but he didn't have much hope in the Uchiha listening to him. Sakura was racing through the trees. She had to find Sasuke-kun quickly. She couldn't believe Naruto when he said that Sasuke was already defeated, but there was always doubt. What if something really happened to Sasuke-kun? Then she saw Kakashi standing in front of her, reading his book like he didn't have a care in the world. He didn't notice me, he thought. Sakura behind you. She turned startled. Kakashi-sensei was now standing directly behind her, his hands forming the rat seal. Leaves swirled around, obscuring her vision. When they cleared, Kakashi was nowhere to be seen. What was that? What's going on? Where's Sensei? She thought frantically. Sakura. That voice. Sasuke-kun. He's calling for me, Kaya. Inner Sakura was dancing with glee. She ran where she heard the voice from. There was Sasuke leaning to a tree trunk, kunai and shuriken protruding from him, blood flowing freely from his wounds, his leg twisted at an unnatural angle. Sasuke-kun, she whispered. She couldn't believe it, so Naruto was right after all. Ah, she screamed and fainted. That might have been a bit too much, Kakashi muttered, not even lifting his eye from his book. Naruto scowled. Sakura had refused to work with him and now she was out. And she fell for a genjutsu, of all things. Wasn't she supposed to be good with them? And Sasuke claimed he didn't want anything to do with him even though he was stuck up to his neck in the ground. His dead clansmen were standing around, talking about how this was undignified and shameful for an Uchiha, and Fugaku kept repeating that his son wouldn't let himself be captured like that. Sasuke was scowling furiously and insisted that he didn't need Naruto's help, to the approval of the rest of his clan. Naruto's suspicion that he was aware of them was strengthened. He left a shadow clone with Sasuke in case the boy changed his opinion. He now had no choice than try and get the bells by himself. It went against the spirit of the test, but he might be able to salvage the result by donating them to his teammates. He looked at the sky. Noon was nearing rapidly and his time was running out. He had to hurry. Finding Kakashi was no problem. He was still near where Sakura lay, flipping through his book lazily. It was a good position to launch his plan. He'd have to lure the Chunin closer to the river first. He made several clones and sent them to their positions. Then he stood at the clearing where he had fought the silver-haired man before. Hey, Kakashi, he shouted. Are you up for a rematch? Kakashi sighed. Was that even possible? Didn't the kid ever learn anything? But wait, the last time it was a clone. What was this one? Was Naruto planning something? It would be better to be careful. But he was only a genin. What could he possibly do? He walked slowly towards the orange-clad boy, book still in his hand, his eyes seemingly fixed on it, but his attention was elsewhere. He suspected a trap waiting for him somewhere, but he was confident he could avoid whatever the genin had prepared for him. Say, Naruto, he drawled lazily, what makes you think you'll fare better now than you did before? You'll see. Obito grinned. It's really something. You're going to like it. Well, maybe not you, but I certainly will. Why don't you come and see for yourself? His loud student taunted. So it's really a trap, Kakashi thought. I wonder what it is. Probably nothing too dangerous, but what if it damaged my precious book? Nah, that would be showing him I take him seriously. He walked with the book still opened in front of his face. Maybe it was thanks to this that he missed Naruto's victorious smile. You're going to get it, his dead Uchiha teammate shouted into his ear, which had absolutely no effect on the masked man. Naruto waited until the silver-haired man almost reached him before springing into action. He jumped forward and threw a violent kick at Kakashi, which the Chunin batted away lazily. But in the next moment he realized he was surrounded by dozens of Narutos. How did they appear so suddenly? He had no time to perform the technique. He decided it didn't really matter. What mattered was that he wasn't able to block all their attacks with one hand preoccupied. One of the clones came dangerously close to getting the bells. He escaped via a quick kawarimi and moved to put his book back into his pouch. That was when he realized he didn't have it anymore. Loser. Loser. Obito sing-song dancing around. Kakashi was worried. Where was his book? Did he accidentally drop it while fighting the Cage Bunshin? His questions were soon answered by a loud shout. Hey! The one-eyed man looked to where did the voice come from. He saw a Naruto standing in the river, holding his prized possession right above the surface. Oh no, thought Kakashi. One wrong movement and he drops it into the water. The thought was enough to make him hyperventilate. I have your precious, the orange brat boasted. I'll return it to you for your bells. Oh, and try something and I'll throw it into the river. It sounded like a fair trade, but the genin had made a grievous miscalculation. He had touched Kakashi's pride and love. Such action couldn't go unpunished. Meanwhile the blonde was feeling quite pleased with himself. He had successfully lured his sensei into an area littered with transformed shadow clones. One of them had managed to successfully switch himself with Kakashi's book when the Chunin loosened his grip on it, and yet another had grabbed the Icha Icha paradise and exchanged himself with a clone standing in the river, on a place surrounded with traps. Now he held Kakashi's prized possession hostage. From what Obito had told him, the one-eyed pervert would do anything to get it back. Kakashi reined his racing heart under control. He couldn't afford to do anything that would endanger his precious. He tried to play it cool. And why should I care? He shouted as disinterestedly as he managed. I could buy another one anytime. I suppose you might, the Jinchuriki admitted, but it wouldn't have the author's autograph with a personal dedication. How did he notice it so soon? Kakashi sweated. He owned you, his dead teammate gloated. Admit it and give him the bells. You must know you lost. Kakashi refused to admit he had lost. Not to a genin. His reputation as an elite Chunin of Konohagakure was at stake. If his peers ever got wind he got bested by the village's idiot, he would never hear the end of it. He was going to show that little upstart his place. But the situation was dire and he had to approach it with utmost caution. That was why he did something he would never admit to doing when facing somebody below cage level. He reached to his headband and uncovered his left eye. So you like my present, Obito squealed. But aren't you ashamed of yourself, using it now? The living man, quite predictably, didn't respond. He opened his left eye. The red pupil with 3 spinning tomo was revealed. I can see. Obito rejoiced. I can see. The only Sharingan user in Konoha surveyed the terrain around the Naruto holding his love prisoner. Several clones were standing guard around him and bright spots randomly scattered around indicated places with high chakra concentration. Some kind of traps, he mused. I wish I knew what exactly those are. Too bad I can't see through things, now it would come handy. Never mind. If I know where they are, I can avoid them. With that thought he covered his Sharingan again. I can't see, Obito wailed, clutching at his eyes. I can't see. It's bad. Kakashi silently moved from his position. He had gathered enough information about the enemy, now was the time to act. A brief analysis of Naruto's defense was enough to show a glaring weakness. It was concentrated on the ground. He didn't see anything that would protect him from an attack coming from underwater. With his experience, the elite Chunin really should have known that not seeing something didn't mean it wasn't there. He reached the river not far from the genin's position, but he was hidden by a turn in the river. He quietly slipped underwater. It was cold and he couldn't see more than an arm's length ahead, but he was used to worse. He stealthily swam towards where Naruto stood. He oriented himself by his chakra signature. It was impossible to miss. He was almost there. Only a couple more strokes and he'd be in position to attack. He'd save his precious and he'd show that little twit why he shouldn't have messed with him. Then his hand hit a ninja wire, completely invisible in the murky water, and he realized he was out of time. He jumped forward, or at least tried to. His feet found no purchase on the muddy bottom and he slipped. He could only listen in terror as a loud splash announced his precious falling into the water. Desperation lent him speed. He reached the drowning book in an eye blink and jumped with it out of the water. He noticed Naruto's clones appearing around him, but he paid them no mind. One quick kawarimi got him out of their reach. "You poor dear, Obito cooed. You almost lost your book. Oh, woe to you." He seated himself in a tree and examined the mess that became of his precious. He realized it wasn't as bad as he originally thought. The orange book was dripping wet, but it wasn't thoroughly soaked. It wasn't in the water long enough for that. The damage would be minimal if he dried it carefully. But the mere fact that there was any damage infuriated him to no end. He plotted the most creatively painful ways to kill the culprit until the alarm rang. So late already? He looked at the sun. It indeed was noon. Well, at least the decision who to tie up is easy today. Naruto was fuming. He came the closest to the bells, at least in his opinion, and yet he ended tied to the stump. Why wasn't it Sakura? She's the one who did nothing. That's so unfair, he seethed. But it's also nothing new. It made him seethe even more. Hey, you were amazing, Obito reassured him. He actually used my eye. The blonde had no idea what was it supposed to mean, but he couldn't ask. He doesn't do it unless he fights really kick-ass ninja. Kakashi stood in front of the three genin, what little was visible of his face completely unreadable. He thought over their performance in the test. Sakura had proven herself completely useless, exactly as he had expected. Sasuke showed more battle prowess that he gave him credit for, but even he didn't show anything particularly surprising. Only Naruto managed to do that. He realized he had to completely change his opinion of the boy. He obviously had some ability and he was smart enough to use it. Once his rage over the stolen and dunked Icha died down, he had to admit that the boy was actually quite good. Maybe he isn't a disgrace to Sensei's name. I wonder why Academy records said the opposite. But what was the most important thing? They showed absolutely no hint of teamwork. Even now they were staring ahead, not interacting with each other except for Sakura's admiring glances for Sasuke. No matter how good their individual performance was, if they refused to work with each other, he couldn't possibly pass them. But maybe, just maybe, he might give them another chance. Well, he started lazily, there's no need for you to go back to the academy. Sakura perked up. She looked like an adorable puppy. Did she really believe she passed? Minus points for her. Sasuke barely acknowledged it. He looked like he considered his success a given. Not that again, Obito yelled. Naruto sighed. Kakashi wondered what that could mean. All three of you should quit as shinobi, he finished and let it sink. Outrageous. Fugaku shouted. You can't fail my son, thief. The Uchiha are better than you. Makoto agreed with a nasty sneer on her pretty face. I said not that again, the goggled dead Uchiha whined. Sakura looked like somebody just kicked her puppy. Sasuke glared daggers. Naruto looked like he expected it. Most intriguing, the Chunin thought. Q quit as ninjas? Sakura stammered. Why? She was at the verge of tears. She couldn't be separated from her Sasuke-kun. We won't be, inner Sakura assured her. Because all of you are just punks who don't deserve to be ninja, he elaborated. Predictably Sasuke attacked him. Kakashi moved swiftly, throwing the last Uchiha to the ground, kneeling on his back and twisting his arm, demonstrating the difference between a seasoned Chunin and a fresh genin. How dare you treat my son like that, you trash, the dead Uchiha clan head shouted. Yeah, man, you're harsh, Obito agreed. That's why you're a punk, the Chunin stated. Don't step on Sasuke-kun. Sakura screeched. Naruto winced. The volume was unbelievable. Wow, she sure can scream, the goggled ghost commented. Kakashi ignored the disturbance and spoke seriously. Are you guys underestimating ninja? Huh? Why do you think you were divided into teams and doing this training? Huh? The pink-haired girl blinked. What does that mean? That means, Naruto started, that we are supposed to be a team. Can't you figure it out yourself? Shut up, Baka, she shouted. Nobody asked you. On the contrary, Sakura, the silver-haired man interrupted. She looked at him befuddled. I asked every one of you. Naruto already gave his answer. Can you do the same? We were divided into teams, because we are supposed to be a team? She looked at their sensei questioningly. She was unsure of her answer, but she couldn't come up with anything better. And what about Sasuke? Kakashi looked down on his captive. What say you? Come on, Sasuke-kun. Obito mocked Sakura's fangirlish tendencies. You're so clever and smart, you can get it in no time. Behind him Fugaku kept demanding Kakashi released his son. Naruto had to bite his tongue. The dead Uchiha were hilarious. Whatever the living Uchiha said was muffled by the dirt he was currently biting. Judging from his tone it was probably unpublishable. No answer? Well, the masked man shrugged, it's your loss. As your teammates almost guessed, the answer is teamwork. But, the pinkette started meekly, but then found her courage. What do you mean, teamwork? There are only 2 bells. So you noticed? Obito snickered. Even if we work together, one of us will still fail. The pink-haired girl was enraged. What teamwork? That just makes us fight each other. Of course. Kakashi shouted. The test is purposefully set up to make you fight among yourselves. Nasty. His teammate kicked him. Sakura looked puzzled. Naruto simply watched him with interest. That in turn interested the Chunin. He had never seen such reaction before. The purpose is to see whether you can forget about your own interests and work together, he explained. A true Uchiha serves no one, needs no one, Fugaku stated. Makoto nodded in agreement. Yet you guys, he shook his silver head and sighed. Sakura, you were only worrying about Sasuke. I know that Naruto approached you, but you left. Why? He didn't give her time to answer. Sasuke, you just assumed the others would go into your way and tried to do everything by yourself. My son can do everything by himself. It's expected from my son. It was certain now. Sasuke could hear them, at least a bit. Naruto, you were running around by yourself. And what was that stunt supposed to mean? You were told to get the bells, not my book. You said we could use anything, the blonde replied. There was no rule about blackmail. I simply targeted something you didn't guard as closely as the bells. And teamwork requires willing teammates and I sorely lack those. How dare you? Sakura shouted, punching him. You see what I mean? Naruto looked at Kakashi. And the Chunin could see. It appeared that at least one of his genin had understood. But one was too little. He needed at least another one to get it before he would pass them. Who would have thought? He tilted his head. The dead last understand something the rookie of the year and the smartest kunoichi just don't get. It makes me really wonder about the academy standards. You're not the only one, thought Naruto. Sakura was scandalized, Sasuke furious. The dead Uchiha clan was scowling. Individual play that disrupts the team can put your comrades in danger, the sensei pointed out. Like it matters, Fugaku said. They're not Uchiha. And even get you killed, Kakashi finished seriously. For example, Sakura, kill Naruto or Sasuke dies. For a moment, he feared she might actually obey. What? She shouted, her eyes darting between her 2 teammates. You see? If a hostage is taken, you will have tough choices and then die. Like we had a tough choice, Obito said sadly. It was completely out of character for him. Naruto yearned to drag the story from him. You will be risking your lives during your duties. Look at this, he pointed at the memorial. The numerous names carved in this stone. My name. These are ninja who are recognized as heroes of the village. But they aren't just normal heroes. They are the heroes who died while on duty. This is a memorial. My best friend's name is already carved here. Some friends we were, Obito muttered sarcastically. Kakashi looked over his shoulders to the 3 genin. You, guys, I'll give you one more chance. But after lunch, I'll make it even tougher to get the bells. Those who still wish to challenge can eat lunch. But don't give any to Naruto. Meanie, you're such a meanie. It's punishment for stealing my book. Hey, that wasn't against the rules, Naruto protested, but the Chunin's glare silenced any further defense. I am the rules here. Got it? You're a meanie. Kakashi finally released Sasuke and disappeared. The Uchiha slowly picked himself up from the ground. This is another test, Obito hinted before chasing after Kakashi. You don't have to give me any food, the blonde said. I'm fine. Like we'd want to, Sakura muttered between bites. Naruto rolled his eyes. Teamwork, he whispered. Sakura scowled. Sasuke looked thoughtful, though with him it was always hard to tell. My son will not fail, Uchiha Fugaku stated for who knows what time today. Then Naruto's stomach rumbled. Sasuke sighed. He handed the remainder of his lunch to his bound teammate. "Here," he said. "Don't feed the monster," his father shouted. Sakura stared at him wide-eyed. "Hey, Sasuke-kun," Sensei just said. Another lie, Sasuke wanted to say, but couldn't. He suspected the Chunin was listening on them. He had to make it look like he actually cared about Naruto more than his career, when in reality he only figured this was another trick test. "Don't worry," he tried to placate the kunoichi, "I don't sense him nearby. Because he's well hidden. After lunch we'll work together to get the bells. Without food, he'd just be in the way." Sakura looked at him thoughtful and then decided to follow her idol's lead. Maybe it would make him fall in love with her. "Che, he'll be all ours," inner Sakura boasted. "Shanuru." Then Kakashi appeared in front of them in a swirl of leaves. The three genin startled. "You three?" He made a dramatic pause. "Pass." It was the first day of training after Team 7 passed Kakashi's test. Their sensei had told them to meet them at the same training grounds at 8. It was now 10:15 and he was nowhere to be seen. "Where is he?" Sakura fumed. "Probably wherever he was yesterday and the day before that," Naruto answered. "Irresponsible. And preposterous. Treating an Uchiha like that," Fugaku sneered. "He shouldn't be teaching my boy," Makoto agreed. "Sasuke deserves better." The only living Uchiha present seemed to agree wholeheartedly. Everybody deserves better, Naruto thought. What have we done to deserve this? But then again, maybe the other instructors are even worse in their own way. He cut his musings short. He had other, more pressing concerns on his mind. Namely what to do about Sasuke's dead family. The more he watched them together, the more he was convinced that his teammate could indeed hear them. Either that or he had exactly the same thought process, which was a possibility as well. He had tried to help the brooding boy before, but failed. He had tried to speak to him directly back then and he refused to respond. Maybe he should deal with his ghostly entourage now? But how? The dead Uchiha despised him even more than the living one. Maybe Obito could help? But the rest of his clan didn't hold him in high esteem either. And that didn't solve the problem of how should he talk to them without being catered off to the mental ward. Before he could come up with a solution, there was a swirl of leaves and Kakashi appeared in front of them. His little orange book was thankfully absent. He's probably scared it would get destroyed. "You're late," Naruto and Sakura shouted in unison and then looked at each other in surprise. "A black cat crossed my path and I had to take the long way," Kakashi explained. "That's my line, you thief," Obito shouted. "Can't you come up with your own excuse?" Naruto was hard-pressed not to laugh. "Disgusting," Fugaku commented. "Liar." Naruto and Sakura shouted once again. Sasuke slightly winced at their combined volume. "Ruffians," the dead Uchiha clan head snorted. "Unworthy to associate with my son." "Anyway," the one-eyed man said completely undisturbed, "now that everybody's here, let's start training." "Yay, training," Naruto exclaimed happily. If he had to wait any longer, it would have driven him crazy. "Ruffian," Fugaku repeated. "That's some enthusiasm," Kakashi remarked. "If you're so eager, let's get started. The three of you, run 100 laps around the training grounds at top speed and don't use chakra to aid you." "What?" Sakura looked horrified. That was considerably more than she was used to running. "I said 100 laps, do you have trouble hearing?" "No? Now go." The three genin obeyed and ran. The Chunin took out his book and started reading. He had plenty of time to finish the chapter. Naruto and Sasuke took it as a challenge. They tried to outdo each other. At first Sasuke was faster, but after about 40 laps his stamina began to run out and Naruto, who didn't slow down the whole time, began gaining on him again. The last Uchiha couldn't allow himself to be bested by the dead last and drew on his reserves, cheered on by his deceased clan. It lasted him another 30 laps. Then he slowed down again. Naruto kept a steady pace the entire race. He caught up with the dark-haired boy during lap 94. "Why so slow, Teme?" he shouted. The Rookie of the Year grunted and pushed the last dregs of his endurance into his legs. It got him through exactly 4 laps. During round 99 he began falling behind and in the last lap Naruto gained a fair lead on him. "Yay, I won," he shouted dancing around. "You won, great." Obito congratulated him. Sasuke dropped down and panted heavily. His family scowled. "Unacceptable," his father said. "My son shouldn't have lost to the monster." Even Makoto frowned. Sakura was at lap 72. Kakashi sighed. There was much work to be done if she seriously wanted to be a kunoichi, though he had some doubts about it. Finally even the pink-haired girl finished and promptly collapsed. The open pervert closed his book with a slap. "Well, now you've finished the warm-up, we can start with the actual training," he announced nonchalantly. Sakura nearly panicked, but was too winded to do it properly. "Let's start with some light sparring," he ordered. "Sasuke, Naruto, you two are first." The two boys obediently moved to the middle of the clearing. "Taijutsu only for now. Begin." The Uchiha wasted no time in tackling his opponent. The blonde blocked his violent punch, but winced under the force of the impact. The dark-haired boy gave him no time to recuperate and followed with a roundhouse kick. The orange-clad boy jumped back to avoid it. The class prodigy was on him again before he could blink. He was furious about his loss in the run and he wanted to get back at the other genin for it. The fight was pretty one-sided. Sasuke was called the genius for a reason and Naruto's taijutsu was merely mediocre, thanks to his lack of actual practice. He lasted as long as he did only due to his resilience, endurance and high pain tolerance. The last Uchiha was getting more and more furious. How comes he couldn't defeat the class idiot? He had hit him numerous times, but the dobi just kept bouncing back. No matter how many times he pushed him to the ground, he always got up. He barely heard Sakura asking their sensei why he didn't call the match. Kakashi answered her that in real life there was no calling the match, you fought until the end. That was right. He would fight until the end. He would stomp the dead last to the ground until he wouldn't be able to dig himself out. He attacked with more power than before. Unfortunately for him, he overreached and when the foxy boy narrowly dodged his fist, he found himself completely open to a counterattack. He didn't realize this until Naruto's fist in his ribs sent him flying backwards. He roared in pain and anger. How dare you strike him? He jumped to his feet and ran at the short blonde. The boy had hard time blocking even few of his punches. He tried to form a counterattack, but Sasuke didn't let him. Soon he forced Naruto on his back and then stomped on him with all his might. "There you have it, Dobi," he sneered. "As expected from my son," Fugaku praised him. "Good work, Sasuke," Makoto smiled gently. "You're so mean." Obito chastised him. "What had he done to you?" Naruto only spat out blood. Kakashi frowned. This was bad. A healthy competition between teammates improved their individual performance, but what he witnessed today went far beyond that. He would have to do something about it or the team wouldn't be able to function. "The match is over," he called. Sasuke won. "Now Sakura, you'll spar against Sasuke." The pink-haired girl looked unsure of herself. She never doubted she would lose, but she was scared her idol might beat on her like he beat on Naruto. That baka deserved it, inner Sakura supplied, but it wasn't enough to convince her. She reluctantly took her place facing her crush. "Begin," the silver-haired man ordered. The fight was quick. The young Avenger attacked without preamble and the fangirl made a few half-hearted attempts at defense. She ended on the ground within a minute. Sasuke won, the Chunin declared. Inside he was frowning. The girl proved herself completely useless. There was one last chance for her. Now Sakura fights Naruto. The last Uchiha strolled away and Naruto resumed his position in the middle of the clearing. He seemed completely unbothered by the beating the Rookie of the Year had inflicted on him. "Begin." Sakura immediately attacked. Naruto blocked her without much trouble. She attacked with more strength, with the same result. That frustrated her. She tried a kick, but the blonde evaded. This had gone on for several minutes until the pinkette started to tire. Her movement became more and more sluggish. This was when her opponent went on offensive. The fight was over in moments, with the kunoichi down on the ground. "Winner Naruto," the masked man announced. "Your performance was pretty pathetic overall." "How dare you," Fugaku growled. Sasuke scowled. Sakura looked sheepish. Naruto watched him attentively. "Sakura, you know the standard academy taijutsu well, but you have little strength and stamina. Naruto, your forms are a mess. You can't count on outlasting every opponent, they would kill you before you have the chance to do so. Sasuke, you might be the best in terms of ability, but you let your pride rule you. That is exactly the kind of thing that would get you and your team killed." He made a pause to let his words sink. "Next thing we'll be practicing your teamwork." He took a bell from his pouch and fastened it to his belt. "Well, you know the drill. You have 5 minutes to form a strategy. Then begin." He shunshined away and covertly watched what his team would do. So how do we do it, Sasuke-kun? Sakura sucked up to her crush. You just don't get in the way, the Uchiha suggested. She looked like he just slapped her. That's right, Fugaku agreed. You're just a clanless excuse for a kunoichi. Hey, we're supposed to be practicing teamwork, Naruto reminded them. Fine, the dark-haired boy scoffed. Sakura can be bait then. It took nearly 2 minutes of insults before they got to actually discussing strategy. What they agreed on in the end was half-baked at best. It started with Naruto's horde of Kage Bunshin attempting to herd Kakashi to where Sasuke and Sakura prepared traps where the Uchiha would try to force the Chunin into an unfavorable position from where the girl would snatch the bell. It failed right at the beginning. The silver-haired man outright refused to be herded anywhere, instead performing kawarimi with Naruto's clones, making them hit each other. Even when the blonde caught up on his trick, he couldn't make the older man go the direction he wanted him to. Sasuke came out of hiding to fight the Chunin without the aid of pre-prepared traps and failed promptly. Sakura didn't even come close to Kakashi. Needless to say, they didn't even touch the bell. Do I even have to tell you how you did or can you figure out for yourselves, he said sternly. Not well, Obito commented. The rest of his clan looked disappointed. The 3 genin stared at the ground. Well, it's late now, so you have an hour for a lunch break. In the afternoon, we'll go for a mission. Yay, mission. Naruto rejoiced. Even Sakura perked up and Sasuke was interested. Kakashi allowed himself a small smile. He wondered how long would their enthusiasm last once they knew the joy of D ranks. Kakashi was currently wondering whatever had possessed him to pass this team. How did he ever mistake whatever they did during the bell test for teamwork? It sure looked that way, but it must have been something else. What they were doing now had nothing in common with any kind of cooperation. After the disaster that was the morning training, he decided to take his team on a mission. They got a simple D rank. What else, to paint a fence? What could possibly go wrong with it? A lot of things, obviously. First came the moment the mission objective was announced to them. They were obviously under some delusion that they would be sent on a higher-ranking mission right out of the academy. When Naruto heard what they were supposed to do, he shouted, "What?" at the top of his lungs. Did he think it was beneath him? He actually thought I'm going to ruin my best jumpsuit, but his sensei had no way of knowing that. Sakura shouted, "Shut up, Baka," and punched him over the head, which made the foxy boy make puppy eyes on her, but she herself looked scandalized. Sasuke only brooded a bit more intensively than usual. When they reached the site, they found out that the client wanted his fence painted a horrendous shade of yellowish green, that clashed horribly with Sakura's dress, so she nearly refused to come anywhere near it. Naruto declared that the color was great, dipping his brush in the bucket and starting painting enthusiastically, sending little droplets of the paint flying towards his teammates. Kakashi suspected he did it on purpose. Sakura punched him for it, making him lose hold on his brush. The tool flew through the air, hitting the lower hem of her dress. An irregular green splotch appeared just below the white circle adorning the red garment. She stared at it in horror. One would have thought that she had no other clothes. "Naruto," she screeched, "that was my best dress. Why did you take it on a mission then?" he thought, but what he said was, "Sorry, Sakura-chan." The blonde looked sheepish. It had no effect on the enraged harpy. She pummeled him to the ground, pounding on him, trying to beat him within an inch of his life. They tipped the bucket in the process, splashing the both of them with liberal amount of the paint. They had to buy a new one, lest they didn't have enough paint for the fence. Sakura whined that she had to go home and change her clothes, because she couldn't walk around the town in her current ones. But Kakashi forbade it, saying how on long missions you couldn't go home and change your dress, you had to do with whatever you had. Oh, and it was a punishment for fighting. Sakura claimed it was all Naruto's fault, but the Chunin disagreed. And he explained her in no uncertain manner he was the one in charge here when she tried to argue. So they went around the town still dripping wet paint, Naruto displaying it proudly like the latest fashion, Sakura trying to become invisible. Unsuccessfully. Her experience in genjutsu didn't reach that far. "Why don't you use henge, Sakura-chan?" the blonde suggested. "Baka," she shouted and moved to punch him before realizing it was actually a good idea. Still, it was humiliating to take advice from the class dobi, but the thought of meeting somebody she knew like that, namely Ino, made her swallow her pride. A couple of hand seals later, none of the spots could be seen. They bought the bucket of paint without further incident and headed back to the fence. By that time Sakura was breathing heavily. The morning training had winded her and it was now painfully obvious that she had the lowest stamina out of the team. Yet she refused to drop the technique, for what would she do if somebody she knew passed by? Kakashi had to order her to quit it before she fainted with chakra exhaustion. By that time Sakura was too tired to stand upright and all the work fell to her teammates. With the delay they made due to the fight, it became dubious whether they could finish the job in time. Naruto wanted to use Kage Bunshin, but their sensei forbade him, claiming he needed to learn to work on his own and not over-relaying on one technique. The boy pouted, but started working with gusto. Sasuke merely grunted, picked his brush and methodically put the paint on the fence. Sakura cooed at how amazing it was. Naruto took that as a challenge and started painting furiously, trying to make Sakura admit he was doing it better. Sasuke, who couldn't allow himself to be bested by anyone, painted faster as well. Thanks to their competition, they managed to finish the mission in time, though barely. There was green paint everywhere, ground, plants and the team. Nobody was spared. They headed to the Hokage Tower to report success. Sakura didn't have enough chakra to perform a henge anymore, so everybody could see her in her red and green glory. Sakura's face was as crimson as her dress. They picked up their mission pay, just enough to cover the cost for the extra paint, and Kakashi called it the day. The three genin ran to their homes as fast as they could. Even Sakura didn't have the energy to pursue Sasuke. The Chunin sighed. Yes, no sense of teamwork at all. And because he had passed them, it now fell upon him to instill it in their thick heads. He wasn't looking forward to it. When Kakashi failed to show up before 8:15 the next day, Naruto came to the conclusion that he was going to be hours late again. He got up from his spot and started walking to the other end of the training grounds. "Where are you going, Baka?" Sakura scolded him. "Sensei might be here anytime." Naruto shot her a dubious glance. "Do you seriously believe that? Besides, I'm not going anywhere far away, I'll be just over there. I figured if we have to be here several hours earlier than him every day, I could as well get some training in. And I don't want to be so close to Sasuke's dead family," he added mentally. "They're driving me crazy." "You'll be tired when he comes," the kunoichi replied. "I know my limits, thank you very much, Sakura. But you should work on them, unless you enjoy lying on the ground completely exhausted like yesterday," he advised. "Naruto," she shouted. "Kill him," inner Sakura suggested. "What?" He raised an eyebrow. "Are you going to accuse me of taking my career seriously, unlike a certain somebody we both know? Don't insult Sasuke-kun." The pinkette looked scandalized. "How dare he? He's so going to die." Her alter ego supplied her opinion. "I wasn't speaking of him, Sakura-chan." He left the pink-haired girl to puzzle out for herself who he was talking about and started training. He wasn't practicing any jutsu, only the basic strength, speed and endurance-enhancing routines. He was still at it when Kakashi decided to grace them with his presence. The Chunin appeared startled for an instant. That's strange," the silver-haired man commented. He looked between his three genin and then focused on Sakura and Sasuke. "Are you too sure you are the rookie of the year and the smartest kunoichi? How dare you?" Fugaku shouted. Sasuke's permanent scowl deepened. "What do you mean, Kakashi-sensei?" Sakura asked befuddled. "It's just that the supposed class idiot is behaving smarter than you," he clarified. "Don't insult my son, you trash." The dead clan head looked ready to murder him. Sakura looked puzzled. Sasuke huffed. "Even if he trains he's still Adobe. And he would be tired for the real training," the kunoichi added. "A good ninja shouldn't tire so easily, Sakura," Kakashi corrected her. "And Sasuke, don't badmouth your teammate. If you are true ninja and not just some punks playing at being shinobi, you should be training with him." My son isn't a punk, you thief. He's an avenger. Anyway," Kakashi continued unfazed, "now everybody is present, we can begin training." "You forgot an excuse," Obito reminded him, but it fell on deaf ears. "Sasuke, Sakura, run 100 laps around the training grounds to warm up." "Naruto, we'll be working on straightening the mess you call taijutsu." "Why doesn't he have to run?" the pinkhead asked scandalized. "Why is he getting special treatment?" The last Uchiha was scandalized as well. Special treatment should be reserved for him. He needed it. He was an Avenger. Couldn't Kakashi see it? Because he was clever enough to warm up before training, the Chunin explained. And you two shouldn't waste any more time. He's still a doby, Sasuke scoffed before running off. Teme, Naruto shouted after his retreating back. Baka, yelled Sakura before chasing after her Sasuke-kun. Naruto found the private lesson with Kakashi very educational. The academy instructors had never shown him so much in so little time. Then Sasuke and Sakura finished running and it was time for team spars. Sasuke tried to pound Naruto into the ground again, but the blonde was holding his own better than yesterday. In the end he lost anyway. Sakura then predictably barely touched both of her teammates. Then followed the dreaded teamwork exercise. Their new strategy was slightly better than their last one, but they failed to obtain the bell anyway. In the afternoon they took another D-rank mission. It thankfully included no paint and they fared better than yesterday. The next day Naruto didn't even wait if Kakashi would come in time and started training right off the bat. After a round of warm-ups he created several clones and took taijutsu spars against them. Sasuke decided it was a good idea and wandered to the opposite side of the training grounds and practiced his taijutsu kata. Sakura cooed on him and prattled about his awesomeness. The last Uchiha ignored her pointedly. When their tardy sensei finally arrived, he sent only the kunoichi running, much to her horror. He had the boys spar against each other and then corrected the mistakes in their forms. As soon as the pinkette finished, he made her spar against her teammates. She was barely able to move due to exhaustion, so the fights ended almost before they began. The third day Sakura finally caught on and even she started training, though she made sure she looked good for Sasuke. Kakashi didn't send any of them running, instead working with them right from the beginning. Naruto wasn't sure, but it looked like the man was smiling behind his mask. In the following weeks, they fell into a routine. In the early mornings the three genin trained individually, practicing strength, speed, kata, chakra control or ninjutsu, depending on whatever they felt they needed. Then Kakashi came and they were sparring, practicing teamwork, polishing their forms and sometimes even learning new moves. Afternoons were reserved for D-rank missions. After 3 weeks they managed to touch the bell for the first time and 4 days later Sasuke actually snatched it. "You're wonderful, Sasuke-kun," Sakura cheered. "We did it," Naruto laughed. Even Sasuke cracked a smile. "As expected from my son," Fugaku said. "Good work, Sasuke," Makoto smiled. "Good job everyone," Obito congratulated them. "You're getting better, kids," Kakashi smiled, "but don't think you're good already." "Uchihas are elite," Fugaku pointed out. "Stuffed up prick," Obito stuck his tongue at him. The clan head scowled, which had no effect on the outcast. "But you're now good enough to learn some of the more advanced stuff. Tomorrow I'll teach every one of you a jutsu," he promised. "Yay!" Naruto punched the air. Sakura laughed and even Sasuke actually smiled. Kakashi was worried about his team. It was true that they improved greatly. Sakura's stamina and chakra reserves grew, though she was still far behind her teammates. Naruto's taijutsu improved dramatically. During his numerous spars with his Kage Bunshin he realized he retained some of his clone's memories. He then used it to test various moves. It dramatically shortened the time needed to get the right form. The muscle memory he had to train with his real body. Sasuke's abilities improved as well, though it wasn't as dramatic as with his teammates. That was something that angered him to no end, so he started secretly practicing another jutsu from his clan's repertoire during the evenings. He wasn't finished yet, but this was where the positives ended. Even though they finally took their careers seriously, even though their teamwork had improved with every drill and every mission, they were only going through the motions. There were no real bonds forming between his students. In every session, Sasuke would try to beat Naruto into a bloody pulp without fail. The blonde looked like he didn't mind, but Kakashi could only wonder how long was that going to last. Nobody could take such abuse indefinitely without effect and the silver-haired man could only wonder when he would finally snap. He was sure that when it happened, it wouldn't be pretty. That brought him to the next matter on his mind. What was he supposed to teach them? Nothing too destructive, that was one matter he was certain about. The boys were prone to use it against each other and he didn't want them to cause any permanent damage. Sakura was easy. The girl still had low stamina, but very good chakra control, so it would be a genjutsu for her. He wasn't an expert on those, but he knew several useful ones. He didn't have to think long to decide on which would be the best for her. Then he thought about Naruto. The blonde already had one powerful technique in his repertoire, the cage bunshin. He needed something he could use in conclusion with it, some short-range melee jutsu that could be activated quickly. Too bad he didn't know what his elemental affinity was. It would have narrowed his search considerably. Well, he'd get to it later. Then there was Sasuke. Not only he couldn't give him anything too destructive, he had to show him something powerful enough to catch his interest. If the last Uchiha thought he was being overlooked, it would destroy what little team dynamics they had. Once again he mused on whatever had possessed him to pass this particular team. If they won't improve soon, he would have to do something drastic, like taking them on a mission somewhere far away and forgetting them there. He sighed wistfully. Too bad he wouldn't get away with something like that. He shook his head. He had no time for idle musings. He had a job to do. He got back to considering what jutsu he should teach the boys. The next morning Team 7 awaited Kakashi's arrival eagerly. They were all training diligently, but only half of their minds were in it. Because their sensei had promised to teach them a jutsu, Naruto was refining his chakra control. He had first heard about tree walking a long time ago, but it took him nearly as long to figure it out. The first few exploding trees had deterred him from trying again for quite a while. But now he was walking up and down the trees with little trouble. He only made sure none of his teammates could see him. He even positioned clones as lookouts. That brought his mind to a less cheerful topic, namely his team. His attempts to improve their relationships had ended in vain, usually before they could begin in earnest. He still didn't find an opportunity to talk to the dead Uchiha clan. Sasuke was trying to kill him every spar, obviously enraged that the Dobi was improving faster than him, even if he was still below his level of proficiency. Sakura at least was beginning to resemble a kunoichi. That made her less likely to die on their first mission, which made him glad. Worse was that she didn't warm up to him one bit, hating him for making her Sasuke-kun unhappy. He had tried to initiate some team bonding activities with her, but she was always chasing after Sasuke. He considered it a success when she didn't punch him. That said a lot about how screwed their team was. He sighed. He would have to do something soon, but no matter how hard he racked his brain, he couldn't come up with anything that might actually work. Then finally Kakashi-sensei appeared. The three genin ran to him eagerly. "Sorry I'm late. An old lady needed my help carrying her bags home and she kept forgetting when she was living. We have walked through all of Konoha before she remembered. That's my line." Obito screamed at the top of his lungs. "Disgraceful." Fugaku sneered and Makoto nodded in agreement. It was the comfortable routine of every morning. "So now everybody's here, we can begin." He withdrew 3 scrolls from his pouch and threw each of them to one genin. "Read them thoroughly and ask me if there is something you cannot understand." Then he sat down and buried his nose in Icha paradise. That was another thing that never changed. "Get a girl finally," Obito advised, but just as every other time it was unheeded. Naruto sighed and opened his scroll. He read the name at the top. Teioshi no Jutsu, the pushing hand. It didn't sound like much, but he wasn't one to judge a book by its cover. He unrolled the scroll and started reading. He had to admit that this technique really sounded interesting. It gathered chakra into one's palm and then pushed it forward in a strong pulse. It could be used to enhance the damage done with punches. When used properly, it could give the illusion that the user was much physically stronger than he really was. There was a warning that it took up a lot of chakra, but that wasn't a problem for him. What was worse, it required good control to do any damage, otherwise it was only a huge waste of energy. Well, he'll just have to train a lot. Sakura studied her scroll intently. Yochi Rinban, the world's turn, the name tag said. A genjutsu. She was always good with those. This genjutsu makes the target see everything at a different angle, as if he was facing another direction than he really is. A skilled user of this technique can control the angle of the shift. The user must be careful not to make the change too big, otherwise the illusion would be easily recognized, because it cannot make the target see something outside his field of vision. If cast while the target is moving, he might not notice he's under the technique. This is quite a limitation on its usefulness, thought the kunoichi, but it is still useful to confuse the enemy. She proceeded to study the details. Sasuke opened his scroll with impatience. Finally he was going to learn something powerful. A step closer towards avenging his clan. He opened the scroll and read, Kaden. Ryuka no Jutsu, Dragon Fire Technique. This jutsu uses wires to guide a torrent of flames alongside them. If the user manages to bind the target with ninja wire, this attack is deadly. Deadly? Sasuke liked that. Fugaku was reading over his son's shoulder. The nerve of him, he scoffed, doesn't he know Kaden Jutsu or the Uchiha's domain? We have a library full of them. And this one as well. True, my dear, Makoto added. A thought suddenly entered Sasuke's mind. Didn't he see this jutsu scroll before? He wasn't sure, but he couldn't rule it out. There were many scrolls in his clan's library. He didn't remember what they all were about. He'd have to check it out. Any questions? Kakashi asked after all three genin read through their respective scrolls. Sakura had some technical question and the Chunin answered it to the best of his knowledge. If there's nothing else, let's practice. The next day Sasuke appeared in a foul mood. He had searched his family library and it didn't take him long to find the scroll with Ryuka no Jutsu there. He wasn't pleased that Kakashi gave him a scroll he already owned. But he had to admit that the one-eyed Chunin couldn't possibly know what jutsu the Uchiha clan possessed. But fire techniques were their specialty. He should have known it. Everybody should know it. He didn't say anything. He had to admit Kakashi was trying. He was going to give him the chance. The training progressed much like it did before. The individual abilities of Team 7 improved and they were integrated into their teamwork. Kakashi tested it again with the bell. He now had to actually pay attention to the three genin now. Otherwise there was nothing to be proud of. Naruto tried addressing Fugaku once, but the dead clan head got offended and shouted at him. His teammates were looking at him strangely, much to the delight of Obito. Kakashi's deceased teammate was snickering at him about talking to ghosts for days after the incident. Naruto decided to put off further attempts until a better opportunity arose. Unfortunately he had no idea how said better opportunity should look like. The bond among the genin weren't strengthening as well. Sakura didn't lash at Naruto so often, but otherwise she didn't warm to him a bit. Sasuke brooded as ever. Sakura still worshipped the ground he walked on, but didn't do it 24/7 anymore. Her training was slowly shaping her into a competent kunoichi and her confidence rose, though only a little. Kakashi frowned behind his orange book. He was worrying about his team too much. He couldn't even enjoy Icha Paradise properly anymore. That simply wasn't tolerable. He had to do something about it. But what? Take them on a C rank? A boring mission would accomplish nothing. And should they encounter an enemy, how would his genin react? Would they be the well-oiled machine they were during training or would they fall apart entirely? There was only one way how to find out, but the silver-haired Chunin was reluctant to pursue it. What if the answer was no? Would he be able to face the consequences? No matter how much the brats grated on his nerves, he didn't want either of them to die. So what should he do? He procrastinated. He didn't have to decide now. He could hope that the matter would resolve itself. But that would take a miracle. Kakashi didn't believe in them. But he tried to hope anyway. That's all for now. If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments.